Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into something that I think a lot of you are really interested in digital marketing. But we're focusing on how entrepreneurs can use it to their advantage. We're talking practical tips, insider secrets, all the good stuff you need to know to stand out online. We've gone through a ton of resources for this deep dive, so you don't have to.
Yeah, it's like a digital marketing crash course, but tailored specifically for entrepreneurs.
Exactly. And you know what's amazing about digital marketing? It really does level the playing field, especially for smaller businesses or even just someone with a side hustle. Like, you don't need a massive budget to get noticed anymore. It's more about strategy now.
Absolutely. It's a total game changer compared to how advertising used to work, right?
Sure.
Like back in the day, if you wanted to reach a large audience, you needed TV commercials, those glossy magazine ads.
Oh, yeah.
And those were insanely expensive, so it really favored the big companies.
Big time.
But with digital marketing, it's kind of like anyone with a laptop and a good idea can get in on the action.
Right. And one of the things that blew my mind when I was researching for this deep dive was this whole concept of an ideal customer profile. Have you heard of this?
Oh, absolutely.
It's so fascinating to me because it's like with digital marketing, you can be so specific about who you're trying to reach. It's not just like putting up a billboard and hoping the right people drive by.
Right. It's so much more targeted. It's like, let's say, for example, you're an entrepreneur selling, I don't know, handmade jewelry.
Okay.
With digital marketing, you can actually target people who have already shown an interest in things like handmade goods, maybe specific types of jewelry. You can even get down to like people who follow certain fashion bloggers or who have purchased similar items in the past.
So it's like instead of that billboard, you're placing a piece of your beautiful handmade jewelry directly in front of the person who's most likely to say, I need that in my life.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're making sure that every dollar you spend on marketing is actually reaching the right people.
Okay, and speaking of reaching people, another thing that really resonated with me was this idea that your website is your new storefront. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm so guilty of this. I will totally judge a business based on their website.
Oh, me too.
If it looks outdated or if it's difficult to navigate, I'm immediately like, are these guys even legit?
Yeah, you get a little suspicious. It's like walking into a brick and mortar store and it's a mess.
Totally.
Like the lights are flickering and you can't find anything. You're probably not going to stick around for very long.
Yeah, you're out of there.
And it's the same with the website. That first impression is so important. Your website needs to be visually appealing. It needs to be easy to navigate, and it needs to clearly communicate what you're offering.
And why people should choose you over everyone else.
Exactly. You've got to stand out from the crowd.
And it's not even just about having a website that, looks all fancy and modern, right?
Yeah.
Because then you bring social media into the mix. And that adds a whole other layer to this whole digital storefront thing we were just talking about.
For sure.
And one thing the podcast I was mentioning really emphasized was this whole idea of using social media to humanize your brand,
Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting
Yeah.
because I feel like, especially these days, we're so used to seeing these big faceless corporations online, and it's easy to forget that there are actual people behind these businesses.
Absolutely.
But with social media, it's like you can actually, connect with your audience on a more personal level.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
And they even specifically mentioned Instagram stories and Facebook Live as good ways to do this.
Oh, yeah. Those are great because they're so much more like immediate,
Yeah.
Like you're right there in the moment with your audience.
Totally. It's like a little behind the scenes peek into your world. And the podcast even used this phrase. They were like, give your audience intimate looks and like sneak peeks on social media. And I thought that was really interesting because it's true. People love feeling like they're getting exclusive access,
Oh, for sure.
like they're part of an inner circle.
Definitely.
But then they took this whole idea of like creating engaging content a step further, and they went full on like marketing guru on us with this concept of content marketing.
Right.
Have you heard of this before?
Oh, yeah. Content marketing is huge.
Okay, so tell me, because I have to admit, like when I first heard that term, I was like, ugh, is this like some marketing jargon I'm supposed to understand now? But they broke it down really well, and it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's one of those things that sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is.
Okay, good.
Because the basic idea is, instead of just constantly like hitting people over the head with sales pitches, like, buy my product, buy my
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
You're actually providing something valuable to your audience,
Yeah.
like helpful information, entertaining videos, stuff like that.
So it's like instead of just trying to sell me your amazing handmade candles, you're like giving me tips on how to make my home smell incredible,
Yeah,
even if I never end up buying a single candle from you.
exactly. You're building trust that way.
Yeah.
You're establishing yourself as an expert in your field.
So it's more about playing the long game.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
instead of just trying to make a quick sale,
It's about building those relationships, and then the sales will follow.
which, let's be honest, is really important in the digital age, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because think about it. Every time we go online, we are bombarded with ads and marketing messages. It's like everywhere you look,
It's overwhelming.
it's exhausting. So it's no wonder that we're all becoming a little bit, like, skeptical. And we've all been burned before, right?
Oh, yeah. Those too good to be true offers. Yeah, we've all been there.
Exactly. So it's like, how do you break through all of that noise and actually connect with people in a meaningful way?
Well, that's where, like, building that trust comes in, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're consistently putting out valuable content, whether it's a blog post answering a common question in your industry, a funny video on TikTok that's related to your brand, even just beautiful photos on Instagram that reflect your brand's aesthetic,
Yeah.
you're showing your audience that you're not just in it for a quick buck. Like
Yeah.
you're actually invested in providing them with something of value.
It's like, hey, I see you and I want to help you.
Exactly.
And that goes a long way.
It really does.
Okay, so we've talked about websites, social media, content marketing, but there's one more piece to this puzzle. And this is where I have to confess, I get a little bit lost,
Okay.
and that is SEO.
Right.
Tell me everything.
Chuckles.
Mm.
Okay, so SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization.
Okay.
And it can sound really intimidating, but it's basically about making sure that your website and all of the great content you're creating actually shows up when people search for things related to your business online.
So instead of me having to scroll through, like, pages and pages of Google results hoping to find your amazing candle store,
Right.
good SEO means that your store is going to pop up right away.
Exactly. It's like free advertising
Yeah.
because you're making it easier for people to find you organically.
Okay, free advertising, I'm listening.
Right. Chuckles.
But speaking of things that I kind of thought were like a lost cause in the digital age, email marketing.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so I will fully admit that when I saw this in the podcast episode we're talking about, I almost skipped over it entirely
Yeah.
because I was like, email? Really? Does anyone even read those anymore?
Right, right.
But then I saw the statistic about how email still has an incredibly high return on investment, like ROI,
It's true.
which basically means, you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah.
So clearly I was wrong.
Chuckles.
But why? Why is email still such a powerful tool when it seems like our inboxes are overflowing these days? So with our inboxes overflowing these days, why is email still considered an effective marketing tool?
Well, because with email, you're talking directly to your customer. With social media, you're kind of at the mercy of these algorithms. It can be hard to tell exactly who's seeing your message.
It's true. It's a little bit of a black box.
Exactly. But with email, someone has explicitly said, hey, I'm interested in what you have to offer. Keep me updated.
Okay, so it's about permission and a more direct line of communication.
Precisely.
I like that.
And the podcast we've been discussing gave this great example about an online clothing store that uses email to send personalized recommendations based on a customer's past purchases.
Oh, yeah. I love that. It's like, it feels like they actually remember you.
Yes, that's exactly it. It's about making people feel seen, understood, and that can make all the difference.
It definitely makes me more likely to, actually open the email and be like, okay, let's see what they picked out for me this time. So besides these personalized recommendations, what are some other ways that entrepreneurs can use email effectively?
Well, you could send out newsletters with, like, exclusive content for your subscribers, stuff they won't find anywhere else. Or you could offer early access to sales, new product launches.
Ooh, that's smart.
Make them feel like VIPs.
I like it.
You could even create a series of welcome emails for new subscribers that introduce them to your brand story, what you're all about.
Okay, it's like building your own little community, but the town square is their inbox.
Exactly.
I love it. We've talked about websites, social media, content marketing, email marketing, but there's one more piece of the digital marketing puzzle that we need to talk about.
Okay.
And this is the part where I personally start to feel a little overwhelmed.
Yeah, I get it.
And that is data.
Right.
There's so much data involved in digital marketing, and they kept mentioning in the podcast this idea of measurable results. What does that even mean? Like, help me wrap my head around this.
Sure. So measurable results basically means that you can actually see what's working and what's not.
Hmm.
Instead of just putting your message out there and hoping for the best.
Yeah, it takes the guesswork out of it.
Exactly. You can track things like how many people are visiting your website, which social media posts are getting the most engagement, how many people are opening your emails, clicking through to your website.
So it's not just about like blindly throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Right. You have actual data to back up your decisions.
Okay, I'm starting to understand. But for those of us who are like new to this whole digital marketing world, where do we even begin? What data should we be paying attention to?
Well, I would say start simple. Don't feel like you need to track every single metric right away.
Okay, good, because that feels impossible.
Yeah, just focus on a few key things. Website traffic, social media engagement. Think likes, shares, comments. And then if you're using email marketing, look at your open and click-through rates.
Okay, that feels manageable.
And then as you get more comfortable, you can start diving into more advanced metrics.
This has been a whirlwind, a crash course in digital marketing for entrepreneurs. We covered so much ground, but I feel like the biggest takeaway here is that in today's world, it's not enough to just have a great product or service. You really need to know how to connect with your audience online, build those relationships, and like we were just talking about, use data to drive your strategy.
I think that's a great summary. And I think it's important to remember that it's a journey, not a destination. The digital landscape is constantly changing, so be open to experimenting, to learning, and adapting along the way.
That's such great advice. Huge thanks to the Margin World podcast for sparking this deep dive, and a huge thank you to you for breaking it all down for us.
It was my pleasure, really.
And to all of you entrepreneurs listening out there, remember, the digital world is your oyster. Get out there and make some waves. Until next time, everyone.